This is my semester examination. My name is Benazir Suci from Diplomacy 3. The first question is, the word politics comes from the Greek word politics, meaning the affairs of cities. In turn of the study of politics is all about how people make decisions that apply to member of their group. Over time, the size of this group grew from the primitive city-states in ancient Greece, like Sparta and Athens, two nation states like Canada and the UK. At its core, this study politics is all about understanding how people allocate the power to control their population, usually through election and the different types of system in place for accomplishing this political science include the study of politics. Political science is the systematic study of government and politics. It is just social science, just like sociology or psychology or anthropology, in that we are fascinated by human behavior. But in the case of political science, we look at political behavior in particular. Political science has often been defined as who gets what, whom, when, where, and how. Political science is about power relations. Um, the difference is you can study politics all you want, but it is not science if you don't use the scientific method, which looking back, that should have been a lot more obvious to all of us who felt as political analysis class. And so in conclusion, the difference between politics and political science is come down not only to the scope of what you are studying, but how you are studying the data. International relation is a broad field that helps create bonds between nations through economics, social, politics, relationship. International politics is a subset of the study of international relation, and as such, it requires critical thinking skill and proficiency in cross-cultural communication. So diplomacy became one of the containers for the actualization of relation between interests of a country to other countries. The national interest of a country is certainly a diplomatic mission for the state in the scope of international practice. The correlation between politics, diplomacy, and business in the context of international relation became a power in one country. The practice of a country's diplomacy success is, of course, influenced by various factors, and the power factors is one of the determining factors for a country's diplomatic success. The effectiveness of a country diplomacy depends on the extent of its own national strength. Some things that determine the success of diplomacy can be analyzed from the diplomatic environment in the form of the international system. The diplomatic environment and domestic relation, while the concept of power is determined by elements that don't change, natural resources, geography, demographic, and population, as well as elements that are easily changed, character and morality of the nation, the quality of government, and diplomatic quality. To the second question, yes, I agree with the emergence of the so-called Asian century, which is rising power like China and India assume a more prominent role in shaping world affairs. Asia has become an important region of study because the Asian century is the project 21st century dominance of Asian politics and culture, assuming certain demographic and economic trends persist. The concept of Asian century parallels, sorry, parallels the characterization of the 19th century as Britain imperial century and the 20th century as the American century. A 2011 study has by the Asian Development Bank found that 3 billion Asians could enjoy living standards because of the similar to those in the Europe today, and the region could account for over half of global output by the middle of this country. It warned, however, that the Asian century is not preordained. The growing importance and emphasis of unity in Asia, as well as nurturing and progressive relationship among countries in the region, further solidify the creation of the 21st Asian century. Asia's robust economic performance over the 3 decades preceding 2010 compared to that in the rest of the world made perhaps the strongest case yet for the possibility of an Asian century. Among many scholars have provided factors that have contributed to the significant Asian development, provide 7 pillars that rendered by the Asian century, Asian countries to excel and provide them with the possibility to become compatible with the Western counterparts. The 7 pillars include free market economics, science and technology, meritocracy, pragmatism, culture of peace, rule of law, and education. Although still behind relatively in terms of income per capita and infrastructure, and is as this world is translated into military, political, and institutional influence via bodies such as UN and the New ASEAN Infrastructure Investment Bank, Asia's two largest power, will global will gain a structural centrality and importance that will make them critical global and expectant population and focal leaders are accelerating essential issues of like environmental pollution and corruption can be overcome, not the emergence of Asian-centric and China or India-centric world order that will form of the essential basis of international affairs for many decades to come. The third question is, so the regional politics dynamics of Asia have changed drastically in the past few years. Uh, Currently, the Asia region was faced with a number of potential security threat situations, including, but not limited to proliferation of nuclear weapons, South China Sea territorial dispute, the Taiwan issue, regional Islamic terrorist networks, and the sorry, and the festering problem of Kashmir between Pakistan and India. The dynamics of the development of the strategic environment, whether global, regional, or national, today have signaled a large and complex challenge for national defense, particularly in maintaining territorial integrity and sovereignty. This challenge then evolved into a strategic threat to the sovereignty of the state, the integrity of the state, and the safety of the nation will increasingly develop into a multidimensional physical and non-physical character, as well as originating from outside and from within the country. The phenomenon of potential threat to a country is divided into main 3 dimensions. The first is that the threat is not yet real, namely the threat or open war between the countries. And in various regions and in various parts of the world are facing a very, very real potential threat of terrorism and radicalism requires concrete and various collective commitment and action. The radical threats and terrorism has natural characteristics in the form of decentralization into the province, in the form of sleeping cell and stand alone operation like lone wolf and radicalization by online, social media, and the use of other sophisticated technologies. Through the cultivation of national insight, not to be easily influenced and provoked by the brainwashing effort of certain groups who wish to divide the nation. Some of achievement of defense diplomacy that have been achieved in an effort to achieve regional stability include the situation in the South China airspace. The first question, okay, so when Joe Biden takes office as the 46th president, it is clear his agenda will focus on the challenge at home, from Latin America to East Africa. Nuclear capable rich state to references regional power. The Biden administration is sure to face foreign policy crisis as it tries to address those domestic issues. It is years of economics, and intellectual intellectual property that have met a backlash that now is bordering on decoupling and separating supply chains and economics. The Trump administration pitched so many needles fight, uh, including the over US troops in Japan, South Korea with German, and national security tariff on Canada and the European Union. So there are four. First is reigning in Russian aggression. North Korea has four nukes. Iran troubles the water ahead of talks and addressing climate change and migration and ending American wars without raising terror threats. And then currently only the United States fulfill the criteria to be considered superpower. However, the United States is no longer the only unconstant former superpower and the world's sole hyperpower to dominate in every domain, such as military, culture, economy, technology, and diplomatics. The U.S. in Asian politics currently the only global military power with the ability to plan, deploy, sustain, and fight on a scale and at a distance from its homeland across the land, sea, air, and space in a way that's just not possible for any other country. But when other dimensions of power are considered, the US leading status become a little murkier. So the last question is the reform of movement was the main cause the knock Soeharto out of the power beset by the Asian financial crisis and triggered by the Trisakti tragedy in which four Trisakti University students were shot and killed in demonstration. Riots in May 1998 to racial riots against ethnic Chinese that occurred in Indonesia, especially in mother city of Jakarta, but also in occurs in several other areas. This not began when Suharto was willing to be re-elected as president after Golkar was the won the 1997 election. A series of incidents of disappearance of democracy activists and students who were considered to be against the Suharto government. Student action were initially carried out in campus, then carried out outside the campus in March 1998, and then uh, it's if students initially demand economics improvement after Suharto was elected, the demands also turned into a change of national leadership. Unfortunately, the violence uh, prepared by the security force is overcoming students in action turn peaceful action into the tragedies. So in Malaysia, when there is a political transition, there will be no chaos and violence in Malaysia society because first is the that issue of party political consultation is not very attractive source of in designing the application of violence against ethnic issue. Second, because of the high standard of living, and Malaysia prefer to secure economic security rather than getting involved too far in political affairs, except for those who are and cadres and structure in the party. So that is the government will provide adequate and equitable access to education for the community. The dogma of development is sufficiently emphasized in Malaysia education. So that the threat of political upheavals of or massive forms of violence can cause political instability, which leads to weakening of the country development, which is deeply embedded in the people mindset. The realism and power transition theory. I choose this theory because they are both a well-known approach to the study of international politics. So it might suffice to summarize them in a nutshell here. So the theory about the nature of war in relation to the power in international relation, uh, I think it defines the situation between the transition politics in Indonesia 1997 and transition politics in Malaysia in 2018. So that's all from me. Uh, thank you.